Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to my DDD top 8 YCS Vegas remote duel profile. I'm here with my team, and I'm gonna be showing you guys a crazy deck that I piloted over the weekend with not a lot of testing, ironically enough, but honestly one of my favorite decks to have played. I really wanted to win with this deck, and unfortunately I lost in top 8 to Sky Striker. But it's okay. Like, I think, you know, those situations happen. I'll just do better the next time. But before I get started with the profile, huge shout outs to my team, Luxury Gaming. 3 of us top this event, so I'm really glad and really happy that, you know, we had a really good showing from our side, and one of us even won. So yeah, I also want to give a huge shout outs to to Nesh. He basically helped me make my deck last minute. I didn't really test a lot this entire week, I said. Mainly because I didn't have time, quite frankly. I was working like OD, so I didn't really have a lot of time to test, and Nesh helped me figure out a lot of the ratios in this deck, so that was really sick. And then, of course, shout out to Hani, who just been traveling and testing with me OD. So, of course, those are the 2 people from the team, but overall, shout out to the team as well, just for being amazing.
Oh my god, you are so nice. But Paul is nicer.
Yo, Paul is insane.
Yo,
Yeah.
nice.
And of course, shout out to Paul for just winning, bro. What else can I say? That man's insane. But okay, so I'll start off with the reason before the profile. I'll start with the reason why I decided to play the DDD deck. So I decided to play the DDD deck because I think it's one of the most consistent decks of the format that has a lot of room for non-engine. And I think that because of that fact alone, I noticed that everyone was playing 15 bricks in their deck. So if everyone's playing 15 bricks in the deck, I wanted to enter the event with a very consistent deck, and I thought that everyone would be on Poly's deck, and I think my deck actually has a very good matchup to Poly's deck, which is like the 60 card break file, because I play 12 hand traps in 40 cards, like 42 cards. What I mean by this is that, like, when you open 2 hand traps against like that Brave deck, like the 60 card pile deck, like, you know, they just don't have a real good backbone, so you just win off 2 hand traps. It was like the reason why out of 10 Swiss rounds, I only won 3 dice rolls, and I went, I think, 8-2, which is ninth overall after Swiss, because like I said, I anticipated the Brave decks being very popular, and I built my deck to beat the Brave decks. So ironically enough, I didn't lose to like Brave decks at all, except the PK Brave in round 10, where I was already guaranteed top cut, and I lost to my L in top 8 to the Striker Brave deck. But I think even without the Brave cards, he was gonna beat me anyways. It was like basically the Scythe lock. But so that was the reason why I decided to take this deck, and now I'll go into the profile. So I played 777 Kepler. This card, if you guys aren't familiar with it, is a scale 10, which is actually very important. And then when it's no more special, it adds a Dark Contract. But it also has another effect, which I find to be very useful, which is it can bounce a DD card, one other DD card to the hand. And that's important because sometimes you need to bounce your scales so that when you link into Gilgamesh or Gilgamesh, it allows you to place 2 scales from your deck. But it has to place at least mandatory 2. So if you don't place 2 scales, then you, like, when you make Gilgamesh, you can't make activate his effects, so you need Kepler sometimes to unclog your scales. Also, the other cool part is that, like, sometimes, like, Orthros, for example, is once per turn per copy. So you can, against like the trap decks, you would use Orthros to pop a back row. You would summon Kepler to bounce Orthros back to your hand, activate Orthros again from in the scale, and use Orthros to pop another back row by popping the Kepler, and then pop another back row. So you'll see that I didn't cite a single back row move because I felt that I had a really good trap matchup with Orthros spam. So Kepler comes up for that, and because it's a scale 10, it allows you to pendulum summon DDD Ragnarok Oblivion, which is really crazy because that's the card that gives you an insane grind game because it can reborn back any DDD monster. So I'll talk about that when I get there, but this card being a scale 10 is actually insane. Like, I never really thought about it, but the more I tested with the deck, I was like, oh my god, the fact that it's a scale 10 is like literally absurd. And there's also a really cool part in testing where, like, you can actually use Siegfried to negate Kepler in the scale so that it doesn't reduce the scale by 2, or it's scale by 2 because that's his effect in standby phase. So when you Siegfried negate Kepler, you can make it so it doesn't reduce the scale by 2, so you can keep pen summoning Ragnarok, and that came up in testing too. So this card is actually really crazy, and it has more effects than just adding Dark Contract. That's why I'm explaining it. The next deck, the next 3 cards I played was 777 Copernicus. This card is really good with the deck because it allows you to send any DD or Dark Contract when it's normal or special. It's also a level 4 DD monster, and basically this deck is basically a Cherubini deck, except it's basically if you get 2 level 4s, you full combo. So 7 Copernicus being a level 4 is really, really important for the deck, and it's one of the best starters, just because it's a level 4, because like I said, 2 level 4s does the god board. So and then the scale effect only comes up basically if you activate Perimap and you use both your contracts, or you're at 2,000 life points with Ragnarok. So 7 Copernicus can actually negate and destroy your own it can negate and destroy your own Dark Contract, so you don't die to your own Dark Contract, which is actually can come up to. So that's what the scale effect does. And then I play triple Swirl Slime. This card is insane. This card is literally one of the best cards in the deck. If you open this card, it allows you to go for Baron lines. It allows you to play through like multiple hand traps, sometimes 2, which is really, really neat. I think the other really cool part about this slime is that it can banish us from the graveyard to summon any DD from your hand, and it comes up a lot where like this card doesn't Copernicus doesn't destroy the contract, it destroys itself and negates the burn damage. Sorry, just to clarify, because they're like the DD7 Copernicus is designed to work with the contracts. Slime is really, really crazy. Like, it can fuse from the hand, and then in the graveyard it can banish summon a DD from hand. So it's one of the best extenders in the deck. So I max it out. And then you have triple DD Griffin. This is the new card that came out in Battle of Chaos. So DD Griffin has 2 important it has 4 effects, which is crazy. The text of this card is literally like Endymion level, but basically the scale effect is basically how you beat over Nib, and it beat over big monsters. Like, I remember I was able to beat over a 4700 defense Nibru with DD Griffin by and I'll explain the combo when I get to my extra deck, but Griffin allows you to boost your monster by 500 attack for every Dark Contract spell traps I control that are unique on the field or the graveyard, and it kills and blows itself up. Which is really, really nice, because sometimes in the combo you need to scale the Griffin, blow it up, and use Thomas to add back to hand, and then use Griffin to special. And so the monster effect of Griffin is when you control a DD monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and when it's pen summoned, you can discard a DD or Dark Contract to draw 1, and when it's summoned from the graveyard, you can search any DD card from your deck to your hand. As you can tell, this card has 3 effects in the monster, like, it has 3 monster effects, which is crazy, and each of those effects are once. You can only use each of those effects once per turn. But this card is crazy. Like I said, the deck became a level 4 turbo deck, the DDD deck. So being a level 4 extender is like really, really crazy. And it's also a low scale, which is nice. So Griffin's insane. Then I played the one Lamia. The reason why you play 1 Lamia is because, like, if you open Dark Contract by itself, it becomes a 1-card combo. Where you can go Dark Contract, search Copernicus, send Lamia, send the Dark Contract, and then you make Gilgamesh, and that allows you to, like, full combo. So that's why you play the 1 Lamia. Also, Lamia comes up sometimes because it's a level 1 tuner. So sometimes you need to, like, synchro the Lamia with let me show you. So sometimes you need to synchro with a Kepler and a Genghis in order to make Siegfried, and the other time you need to use Lamia and D-Arc to make Siegfried. So that allows you to get access to Siegfried lines, which is really neat. So I really like that card a lot. So Lamia is like a free extender, free body. It's also an extender to make Gilgamesh as well, because a lot of people sometimes just stop you from before making Gilgamesh. Like, the Lamia gets you that extra body to get there. Also, they can put slime, like Swirl Slime. Swirl Slime can go into the graveyard. It puts Griffin in the graveyard sometimes. Like, it's also like a card that just puts DD cards in the grave, which is kind of cool. So I like it. 1 Necro Slime. This card is really good. I like it because you don't really want to open this card, but you want to foolish it a lot. And if you do open it, you can use the pendulum. You can use the monster effect of Griffin to discard it to draw 1, which is really nice, because you'll find that I play 12 hand traps. So every time I activate Griffin effect to draw 1 card, I always drew a hand trap, most likely, because I thin out my deck a lot through the combo itself. Necro Slime allows you to banish yourself and another DD monster to special summon a DD fusion monster from my extra deck. And this card is also a level 1 monster that you can summon off 1-for-1, and that came up a lot for me, where, like, I already opened Kepler, so being able to 1-for-1 for Necro Slime makes it so that I don't need Copernicus to send the Necro Slime, which is, like, really nice. So Necro Slime allows you to make this the Fusion 6 or the Fusion 7, which is really nice. And then the card that Nesh told me to play, which I argued with him, saying this card was ass cheeks for like forever. And I have to say it live in this profile that he actually is right. This card is broken. So Vice Typhon was really good for me. And I never really sided this card out. I actually was siding this card out a lot in my siding pattern, but this card is really, really broken. Like, the fact is, this card allows you to make the Fusion 8. And the Fusion 8 is a spell and trap negate on your own turn, but the Fusion 8 gives you an extra push, especially when you're going second. This card gives you that extra push in order to beat your opponent, and I really, really like it. And like, a lot of people have to respect this card because when I activate it, they have to chain their Pandemonium. They have to chain their spells immediately, because if they don't, then I can just negate it. So like, this card is really, really good, and I really, really like it as well. Also, there's a combo with Vice Typhon where you use the Fusion 6 to reborn the Typhon, and you use Lamia to bring yourself back, and you use Lamia and the Vice Typhon to make Siegfried, which is a spell and trap negate, and then you use Typhon to banish yourself from the graveyard, and then use the Synchro 8 to bring back the Fusion 6. So there's combos with Vice Typhons with Lamia as well to allow you to get access to Siegfried, because Vice Typhon is actually it's a level 7. For some Pendulum monsters that are one-ofs, you have 7 Thomas. Farfo was making a meme about the fact that my middle name is Thomas, so it's kind of cool that I'm playing a card called DD7 Thomas in my deck. This card is an insane grind game card. Basically, when it's in the scale, during the main phase, I can add a DD monster from my extra deck to the hand. So it allows you to like loop Machinax as well. So I think that's pretty neat. So then you have Zero King Rage. Zero King Rage is... Oh, this is the card that no one has in EU. I feel sad about the people in EU. So this card is really crazy, and you'll see that these two cards are the reason why the deck had to be 42. The reason why the deck had to be 42 is because of these two cards. So Zero King Rage has the most absurd effect ever. Bro, if you read this card, it literally says this. So the scale effect is basically, if you would take effect damage, you take no effect damage. If you normal summon a level 5 or higher DD monster, you can do it without normal summoning. So this card, when you activate Period Map, this card makes it so it helps you so you don't die to your own map and contract. And then the monster effect is where it gets wild. If you guys watch my top 8 match game 2, I literally activate this card to like full combo him without fear of anything. So you can tribute one other monster and apply one of the following effects until the end of this turn. And you don't have to say which effect you're using until it has resolved, which is really crazy. And it actually came up in one of my rounds where I activate the effect of Zero King, tribute a monster, and my opponent like didn't know which effect I would use, the spell trap one or the one where they can't activate cards or effects in the hand. So it can either attack directly, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in the spell and trap zone, or your opponent cannot activate card effects in the hand or graveyard, which is really, really crazy. So literally, you activate this, and you can literally azet out your opponent. You can turn off their entire back row, and turning off your entire back row is really crazy because Zero King Rage is a DDD monster, which means you can overlay Machinax on top of this, so you can attack them and make Zeus. Yeah, and it's also not once per turn, so you can actually call, like, you can tribute, turn off their back row, and then tribute again to attack directly, and it has a crazy effect. If this card declares an attack and your opponent has 4k or less life points, you can make this card gain attack equal to your opponent's life points until the end of the turn. So if your opponent's at 4,000, you can activate this effect to attack directly, and they just die because it gains attack equal to your opponent's life points when they're under 4k. And then you the reason why this card is actually played is because it allows Kepler and Dark Contract to be a one-card combo, which is really nice. And then Cerberus, because basically once per turn, you can target one DD monster you control, changes level to 4, and if it does, it gains 400 attack and defense. And this card is really nice because it allows you to beat like big monsters, because sometimes this deck can struggle beating over big monsters, so Cerberus helps you do that. And then when it's Pendulum Summoned from the hand, while you control a DD monster, you can add any continuous spell in the graveyard to the hand. So it lets you recycle continuous spells when it's Pen Summoned, and it's also an extra level 4 body. So the extra level 4 sometimes lets you make Siegfried, which is really, really nice. So yeah, these are the two cards that made my deck 42. And then for the last two Pendulum, DD Orthros and Ragnarok. So I'll explain Orthros first. This card I only played as 1. I was playing at 2 before, but it never really comes up where you need 2. The only time you needed 2 was against like trap decks, but I didn't anticipate that many trap decks in the meta. But Orthros effect is when it's in this spell and trap zone or in the Pendulum zone, you can target one spell and trap card on the field, one other DD or Dark Contract, and then destroy them. And this card actually is a combo piece because it lets you make Siegfried, where you pop itself and one of the rank 4s. you put it into sorry, in the rank 5, you put it into the extra deck after it gets destroyed, and then when you send the field spell off the rank 5, and the field spell when it's sent from field to the graveyard, you can add Orthros to your hand. And then when Orthros monster effect is when you take battle or effect damage, you can summon this card from the hand for free, and then you're locked out of fiend monsters for this turn. And the way you take burn damage is through Ragnarok. So you would go like Ragnarok effect, Reborn back Griffin, and go Chainlink 1 Griffin, Chainlink 2 Orthros to summon itself from the hand. And then because you take 1000 damage off of Ragnarok. So that's how you do the combo with Orthros, which is really, really cool. Orthros is really nice. It's one of the cards that lets you beat the trap deck really, really easily. So that's it for all the monsters. Not as many monsters as Poly, but I feel like the lineup was like really, really good. Like 1-ups for all the utility DDD monsters, if you notice, and then 3-ups for all the ones you actually want to open. So it's just, I feel like really good deck building theory where I max out cards I really want to see, and the cards that are 1-ups are all utility cards. So I feel like this is really good, like main deck for all the main monsters. I really like it. At least the engine. I'll show the hand traps after because I want to focus just on engine first. And then for the spells, I played Triple Dark Contract with the Gate. This card is a starter. It adds you any DD from your deck to your hand, so why would you not play Triple Rhoda? And then during standby, you take 1000 like all Dark Contracts. And then I played the Triple Rice map. This was a card that I wasn't really sure if I wanted to play or not. I thought I was going to play Small World, but I thought a lot of people would play Lancia, so I didn't really want to. Period map is really good because it adds more starters to your deck. It adds you either Kepler or it adds you Copernicus, which are like one of your best starters in the game. And then Period Map also can add you the Zero King. And even though it says that you cannot activate the monster's effect, you can still search Zero King and scale it, which is a continuous effect, so that under Zero King, when you search it, you actually don't take any damage. I thought this card was really good. It was basically more copies of Dark Contract, and I didn't like Small World because Small World, when you activate Small World, you usually have to give up a hand trap. And like I like the fact that like I like trying to combo and having non-engine like hand traps in my hand to like play around like droplets a lot better. So I like honestly think this card was a lot better because I didn't have to take the -1 by giving up a hand trap, and I didn't really want a Small World like I didn't really want a Small World like one of my engine pieces or like one of my 1-ups because they're all needed in some form. So like I usually prefer this card because it can search what I needed a lot better. So yeah, so there's that. And then one Dark Contract with the Swamp King. This card is basically polymerization, but if you summon a DDD monster, a DD fusion monster, you can actually banish from your graveyard as well, kind of like Invocation. And then Dark Contract with Patent License. This is the new field spell. This card is an FTK against Prankits. I played against like 5 or 6 Brave Prankit deck, and I don't think I've lost to a single one in the entire tournament. Like I've 2-0'd every single person except one person. I 2-1 him. But every other person I 2-0'd. And this field spell is one of the reasons why. Basically, if so I think that's like really, really neat. And then the other awesome effect about this card is if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add any DD from your deck or extra deck to your hand, which is crazy because there's a lot of times where my opponent breaks my board and they Zeus me. Like there's like you can tell anyone who's been watching my games during the YCS will tell you that I've gone in Zeus Dropleted like Fusion Destiny like freaking 4, 5, 6 times, and I never lost that match because of the field spell. So the field spell gets me back a DD card, and then the rank 6 grabs me any Dark Contract. So I would search the Gate, and this card grabs me any DD monster, so I get 2 pieces of follow-up after getting Zeus and my board entirely cleared, which is crazy. I think the reason why this deck is so good is also because of the fact that even if you get Dropleted Zeus and gets your board entirely nuked, it has so much grind game and recursion that it's actually like very, very crazy. So I really like it as well. Cut. Okay, the next card is 1-for-1. 1-for-1 is obviously one of the best cards. There's not really much to say about it. It summons Kepler, or it summons the Lamia or the Necro Slime. So it's a really, really good card for extending. So it's really, really insane. So nothing really to say about that. And then 1 Headhunt. This card is Widow Anchor. This card is really crazy because if you control a DDD monster, you can target one face of monster opponent controls and take control of it. And then it actually takes us for 2 turns. So I think that's really, really nice. And then the really cool part is if you take a monster from the extra, it becomes a DDD monster. So that's pretty sweet. So I like this. I actually prioritize ending on this card a lot, to be honest. It's just because like this is one of the cards that like plays around droplets the best. Because like, if your opponent doesn't hard activate droplets in standby phase, you can go headhunt. If they go droplets, you can go headhunt, try to take, and then chain Siegfried to negate their droplets. I think that was one of the mistakes that I saw people made, where they didn't droplet their but if they droplet their entire hand in standby phase, I think like the headhunt is already winning by itself. And if they try to do it after the normal or special or something, the headhunt gains better value because it can help you negate with Siegfried. So I think this card is really, really crazy. I really like it. It's basically Widow Anchor. And then I think the reason why I was having so much success in the tournament was because of this. Triple Ash Blossom. Triple Effect Veiler. Triple Nib. Triple Ghost Ogre. So I played 12 hand traps. And this is why I lost so many dice rolls, but it didn't matter. People were like, yo, you're sacking me, bro. How'd you open 2 hand traps? How'd you open 2 hand traps? Bro, I'm playing 12. When you play 12 hand traps in 42, you have a 50% chance to open 2 hand traps, which is the math that I wanted to go for, because quite frankly, like, these hand traps are what lets you play through droplets really well, which is what everyone was playing. I maxed out on all these hand traps. What's up?
83.44.
Yeah, 83.44 was like the exact amount. Hand traps are just really, really good, and a lot of people are playing the Brave Pile decks, and when you like hand traps the Brave Pile decks, like these hand traps just like ends their turn. Like it's just so good. Like I just think these cards are crazy. Like I love these hand traps. Like they were the reason why like I was able to survive so much through like so many like crazy boards. Like I barely won dice rolls, and these hand traps were just crazy at like making sure I can establish a board and making sure my opponent can't play. And a lot of people didn't respect Nib, which is crazy. So I really like it a lot. Okay. Yeah, it was also the reason why, if you guys haven't noticed yet, I didn't play droplets in my main deck was because I couldn't, like, a lot of those Brave Pile decks, yeah, they make Herald and they make Baron and all that good stuff, and when you activate droplets, you go 2-. And then the other issue with droplets is that this is a pendulum deck, so like you can't really droplet pendulum monsters on the field, so that's like really, really bad. And so I think droplet wasn't necessary for the deck. And it's like not a good card in the format right now, just because I think there's too many ways to play around droplets personally. So I rather just make it so that my opponent can't play the game at all and try to commit to that full strategy. And also, like, I didn't like the fact that like when you have droplets and a hand trap, it's like really, really awkward. So I rather just commit to the full hand trap strategy and maximize my chances on opening 2 in a very consistent, you know, small, like concise, compact deck. So that's the reason why I played this deck, and the reason why I feel like I saw so much success, just because I played so many hand traps. Yeah, the reason why it's not imperm and I'm playing Veiler is basically because like when you do your full combo, you have to set you have 2 scales, a dark contract for the Swamp King, the dark contract for the gate, and then 1 headhunt. So, you know, it was really, really it was like, yeah, it's just really hard to set imperm. That's why. So that's it. 42 cards in the main deck. For the side deck, I think I'll go Ash. Yeah, I'll go into the side deck. The reason why I feel like I also did really well, and the reason why I main deck 12 hand traps was because game 1s are so important because of tempo. Because game 2s and 3s are sided games, so I really wanted to build my deck to win the game 1s as much as possible, and that's why you saw like so many of these hand traps in my deck. So the idea was I would win game 1. That's why you saw like a lot of 2-0s in my Twitter report, where I 2-0'd a lot of my opponents because I would win game 1, and then game 2 I would go second, and you're gonna see why. When I went second, my opponent was just getting cooked. Like I had literally, I think 10 hand traps. Post side that like 8 hand traps would come in. So 8 hand traps would come in post side, and I would go from 12 to 20 in my deck post side against every deck. And the reason why it's 2-ubs for these is because I believe that diversity in hand traps was a lot better because it's a YCS, and these hand traps all have certain cards that they're good into. And I can show you guys the side deck pattern too, so you guys might be wondering like, Pac, that's cap. There's no way you side this many hand traps in. Well, I'm not capping, so I'll show you guys exactly my side pattern. So I side this card out, I side triple rice map out, I side out the trap, I side out the field spell because these cards are not good going second. So these cards are already 7, and then the last card was Vice Typhon. So these were the cards that I was consistently siding out, so that I had 8 cards sided out, and then I had Gamma, Imperm always came in, and then it's either Token Collector or Lancia that came in. So at that point, like, bro, like my opponents was not playing the game. I would open 3 hand traps going second OD, 3 hand trap my opponent, have one of my 1-card starters, and then just pop off 1 2-card combo them and just win, because I would have 6 cards, and that's basically my side deck pattern. So yeah, like that's what I meant by like whenever I win game 1, I go game 2 and I just auto cook them, because a lot of these people like they play the Brave Pile deck, which I think is like, personally, I don't think the deck is that good. Like, I think the deck is good, but like I think if people build for those decks, it's actually not that good, and that's why I build my deck to beat those decks, because I know a lot of people would play it, because quite frankly, it's just like you activate rights, you normal summon Red Rose, and then you do your loop, right? Like it's a pretty attractive deck to play for a YCS, especially if you haven't done a lot of testing, in my opinion. And so I was like, okay, I know a lot of people are going to play that, so I'm like, okay, the deck is a very consistent deck already, and I'm not really siding that much engine cards, except like, you know, these are cards that are not mandatory. Like, these are cards you never actually needed. And when you draw 6 going second, like, you see your starters and your side deck more better, so I think that's really nice. And then, yeah, these cards were just ending people's turns. So I was like, yeah. And then I'll explain each of these hand traps, why I played them. So first, I'll start off with Token Collector. This card was crazy. So in one of my Swiss rounds against Brave Prank Kid, I did the craziest outplay, I feel like, ever. So I opened Token Collector and Ogre, and my opponent's playing the Brave Prank Kid deck. So the way I did use my interruptions, what I thought was really cool. So first, my opponent went Rites of Error Measure, makes a token, right, and then set the spell, you know, Adventure. Then my opponent went normal summon Prank Kid, chainlink 1 Prank Kid, chainlink 2 Adventure. I chain Ogre. And you might be wondering, why did I not Token Collector on the Rites of Error Measure? Well, because afterwards my opponent made the doo-doo effect, add back, doo-doo effect to search the the Pandemonium, and then fancies to send the pranks. And then my opponent went effect tribute, add back pranks, add back a kid. And then my opponent activated pranks pitch, Token Collector on res, destroyed his Rites of Error Measure, and destroyed his Prank Kid token, and then he passed. And then it's even crazier because my opponent, this was in top cut, this was top 16. My opponent actually drew all 3 colors of the Prank Kid engine. So he had a set Pandemonium that was actually live. So you know what I did? I had Token Collector on the board. I went normal summon Copernicus, effect Copernicus to Foolish. He's like, sure. Anything on res? He's like, nope. Overlaid both of them into a Wave King Kai Caesar, because they're both level 4 fiends. So you can actually overlay into an engine piece. And the really crazy part about this card is this card beats Butler, because this card says you can attach a material for a quick effect. At the end of the battle phase, special summon from my graveyard, soul charge all monsters that were destroyed this turn at the end of my battle phase. And Token Collector is a fiend. It's a level 4 fiend that allows you to make DDD Wave King Caesar. And I did that play to 2-0 him, which was insane because he couldn't Butler this. Because if he tries to Butler, I chain, and if he doesn't Butler, I go battle phase attack. I make Zeus, nuke the board, GG's. The game just ends. Against Prank Kid, the game just ends immediately. So he has no follow-up, no recursion. So that was my play where I'm like, yo, I think I played out of my, like, I literally played out of my mind, like, to win that match. I was like, that was crazy. So yeah, Token Collector is really insane. Like I said, there's a lot of really cool plays if you get really creative. So I think that was one of the coolest plays I did all tournament. So yeah, so that was my side pattern. So let me explain the other hand traps as well. So this card was for obviously Prank Kids. It was also a card for all the Brave Pile decks because they play the Roydon combo. So I wanted to Token Collector I wanted these hand traps in for the like Polly's deck because I know they play the Fiber Roydon combo. So when you do this, they can't Fiber Roydon you. And that combo is like really degenerate. They can't Mare you, they can't like Aurora you, they can't Rites of Error Measure you, which is I think really good. So I think this card was like really nice. And then the other two were Gamma was always set into every matchup. So this card was crazy for every deck. It didn't matter what they were playing. This card was always good. So that's why I played this card. I played 2 Lancia because it was a card that was really good into the Flunder matchup. It was one of the matchups I was really scared about. So I had 2 Lancias for the Flunder matchup. It was also a really good card into the PK matchup. So it's a good card into like the Virtual World matchup. So it had like it covered that matchup. And then I had 2 impermanents because I wanted basically 5 cards for the Flunder matchup post side. 5 additional cards for the Flunder matchup post side right here. So the reason why it was like 2 imperm was because I wanted 5 additional cards for every matchup, like either Gamma Lancia, Gamma Collector, or Gamma Imperm into like all the matchups that I wasn't really sure about. And I think the diversity in hand traps was really good because a lot of the people played like random like brave variations of decks. So what I mean by that is like, for example, the Eldritch Gadget deck. If I had Token Collector against that deck, they don't get. I destroy the 2 tokens. I destroy the token summon off of Eldritch Gadget, which is like really crazy. So like I said, I just like the diversity in the hand trap. Yeah, so that was my hand trap lineup. And the reason why I didn't have like other hand traps, which was gonna be either Droll, I was gonna play Bell as well, was because I decided to play this card for going first, which is triple Tactics Talents. I thought that a lot of people would also be on the a high amount of hand traps theory like I was. Because I was like, yo, I think a lot of people should catch on that like a lot of people will play a lot of hand traps. So I'm like, oh wait, if a lot of people play a lot of hand traps, the DDD deck is a very like it's a deck that already plays through a lot of interruptions. Like if I open like 2 card, 3 card, 4 card, 5 card combos, I can play through extra interruptions at every step of the time. And if my opponents don't use their hand traps perfectly, Tactics is a very punishing card. Also, the reason why I wanted to play Tactics was because a lot of people were playing the 60-card brick deck. So I was like, okay, if my opponent hand traps me even once, I activate talents, I look at their hand, they should theoretically have only 1 or 2 starters. I rip their only 1 starter, they should lose the game. And what I mean by this is like, they hand trap you once, you activate Tactics, you either rip Rights, Aquamancer, you rip like Rose, the Rose Dragon. I'm telling you, that deck literally does nothing because all they're going to be sitting on is a bunch of hand traps. You rip their only starter and they should literally lose. And like your deck would win in the grind game because you have Dark Contract with the gate on the field. And that was like the theory with this card too. Yeah, sure, they can open like God Hand, but like in 60 cards, I'm not putting them on opening God Hand. So I think like Tactics was really good because your opponent should open a bunch of hand traps. You get hand trap once, you get to make Machina, activate Tactics, look their hand. Machina next turn pressures a Zeus line. So it was just like, I thought this card was really good. It was really good theory. So shout out to Max for letting me borrow last minute. I literally drove 50 minutes to go get this card because I didn't own it. Feels bad, man. But yeah, what do we decide for talents going first? Yeah, so my side pattern for Tactics going first is I usually side out one of each hand trap that I thought wasn't good. So for example, I had triple Ash, triple Nib, triple Ogre, triple Veiler, right? So what I would do is when I went first with this deck, I side out usually I side out 1 Ogre, 1 Nib, 1 Veiler, 1 Ash out, and then I put a 1 Callby as well. So Callby was my 4th card. So these 4 cards would come out and then I would have these cards in for going first. So basically I still had like a lot of defensive cards if I get hand trapped a lot. And I think it's fine with like I put these cards in. So I just take out one of the each unique ones and then just have these unique ones because with the draw off Griffin, like you kind of want to have unique hand traps and don't want to draw into the same ones because multiple interruptions, multiple hand traps are better when you go first to play around Nib. Play around Nib, like play around Droplets, all that good stuff because you want like very vastly different non-engine cards to substantiate your board if you get Dropleted. That's why. Obviously, if like certain matchups where like certain cards are ass, like you just keep the better one in, obviously. So Imperm is better than Veiler because you don't have enough cards to set if you do your full combo. So there's that. And then the last card I sided was Dark Contract with Errors. This is a card that's really insane into the trap matchup. This card basically says if you control a DD monster, you royal decree all trap card effects on the field other than this card for the rest of the turn. So I didn't really have any back row removal at all, but this card, like basically against like, I'm talking about like strike decks, trap decks, all that good stuff, you can literally activate this and you auto win the matchup. And you always search this in the combo. Kepler searches you this card too, which is insane. So like against like the hard trap decks, you search this card, you win. I was actually gonna play Eternal Darkness, but honestly, I was like registering my deck at lunch, and so for the Flunder matchup, like there's also the Dark Contract with Eternal Darkness, and I was like, there's either that or this card. It's either or depending on the matchup. To be quite honest, I think the other one is better for Flunder if Flunder becomes more popular. But there's like literally only like 1 Flunder, like 5 Flunder players in the entire like tournament, so. I think like this card was actually good because like if I played against like the Eldritch deck with like freaking set 5 pass, it's actually very scary, and I think having this card is really nice, especially because I don't play any back row hate. Because quite frankly, I just didn't really respect like the back row decks. You can just Orthros a bunch of times, and I think like this card to search off of is just like free win. So that's pretty much it for the side. Yeah, so honestly, like Paulie was talking about not playing back row removal. Yeah, basically like came up with a theory that I just think that the LH5 set 5 deck isn't very good into the meta, and I just didn't think a lot of people would decide to play that deck. So the way I looked at the meta and evaluated it was, I was like, you know what? I think a lot of people are not going to play the like hard trap decks. So what if I just side all the hand traps for the decks that I know will be the most represented, which is the Brave Engine? Like a lot of people will be playing the Brave Engine, especially because like the with the Brave Engine in the meta, it's very, very hard to play like, you know, set 5 decks. So I was like, in my head, I'm like, I'm just not gonna side backward removal, and I thought that was a really cool theory because like I don't really see a lot of people doing that, where they, like, you know, a lot of people just based off of like you know, comfort, they always side backward removal, but they never ask why they side backward removal. And so I decided to like take that, I think, additional step and be like, wait, why am I siding backward removal? Like, what is it for? And when I asked myself that question when I was building the deck, I was like, there's actually just no reason to be siding Lightning Storm. There's actually no reason to be siding all these cards, because if you Lightning Storm your opponent, they Scythe Lock, you just lose, right? So I was like, I asked why, and when I asked myself, I'm like, there's actually no reason to. So that's why I just didn't side back removal. And then for the extra deck, the best card in the extra deck, literally, Gilgamesh, aka Giganesh. This card is godly, bro. This card literally says when it's special summoned, not link summoned, special summoned, you can basically place 2 DD scales from your deck, and you take 1,000 points of damage. The reason why this card is crazy is because in the grind game, you can actually reborn this card off like the rank 6 or the rank, sorry, not the rank 6, the fusion 6 or the fusion 8, and actually trigger its effect, because it triggers on special summon, not on link summon, which is crazy. So that's a very important effect. And the wording place is very important, because under anti-spell, you can actually activate this effect and resolve it under anti-spell, which allows you to like not care about anti-spell at all. And then you can use Orthos to pop their scale and just go free low. So I think this card is like really, really good. It's just crazy. And the fact is, when it's destroyed by an opponent's attacking monster or card effect while in my possession, you can summon any DD monster from your extra deck or graveyard. So it's, if you gamma this card, I just get a free body off my graveyard or my extra deck for free, which is like absurd. Like this card, like with people having a lot of gammas in their deck, was just crazy. Like I think this card was just crazy. Like a lot of people gamma this. I just summoned Siegfried. A lot of people try to attack over this, especially the Pranked deck. A lot of the Pranked decks like couldn't out the field spell. So like I know I made a mistake. I didn't read it. I thought it was mandatory. It's not. But it never really came up, because you would never Ash, even if it was Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2 Prank Kid, and it was a mandatory effect, you would never Ash the Prank Kid anyways, because it literally doesn't matter, just because of the fact that they can't link summon anymore. So you always let them link summon the first kid, and you don't even snatch steal it, because it literally doesn't matter, because they can't out the field spell. And if they try to attack the Gilgamesh, you can just summon back like a Siegfried or something and negate their Pandemonium, so they just can never win the game, and having the trap live as well. But yeah, this card is like really, really crazy. Then you play the 2 new card out of Battle of Chaos. This card is literally absurd. This card is called Divisor King Duelist Machine X. This card is crazy. So basically, it's like Dingirsu, but it's better than Dingirsu in the sense that it's not once per turn to overlay or XIZ summon on top of any DDD monster you control, including some of the main monster ones too. So like, what I mean by this is like Ragnarok, and I think Zero King Rage are main deck monsters that are DDDs, triple Ds, and they can like, you can just stack them on top of this card. And I think in one of the games you saw that I went attacked with Machinex, made Zeus on top, and then stacked Machinex on the other one, which is like really, really cool. This card has an effect that's not once per turn that says whenever when a monster card your opponent controls activates its effects, you can detach 2 materials or destroy a dark contract you control. It does it not for cost but for effect, and it attaches that monster card as a material underneath the Machine X. So it actually, this card is a really good answer to all of the people playing DPE in their deck, which is why I thought this card was like, this deck was a really good meta, because it had a really good answer to DPE by just like taking their DPE. And then it also can go into the scale, the pendulum zone in the standby phase. It never really came up for me because this card never sticked. This card by itself forces your opponent to play so weird to out it, because it's 3,000 attack and 3,000 defense. So a lot of times they can't really like attack it or pressure it, which is really, really crazy. And then, but just in case if you're not aware, it only came up in testing for me, but basically it basically says when it's in the scale, it's a scale 10, which is important because it can pendulum summon, like I said, it can pendulum summon this card. And this card is crazy. And So I can pendulum summon that card, and basically what it does is it can target a pendulum monster I control in my graveyard, summon the card in my other pendulum zone, and then I place the card I targeted in the scale, which is really neat. So yeah, this card is really crazy. I only played 2 because there's no room for 3. But if I had more extra deck slot, if I had 20 extra deck slot, I would play 3 of this card for sure. This card is literally so broken. But yeah, you can't pen summon Machinex because it's a rank. So you can't pen summon a rank. Next, I play the Wave King High Caesar. This card is a rank 4 for the archetype. Then this card is basically Turbine. It's mad funny because I call the deck basically a rank 4 turbo deck now. That's basically what DDD has reverted to. Basically, you can attach a material and you soul charge all monsters destroyed at the end of this battle phase. And basically, you take 1,000 damage during the next standby phase for each monster that's soul charged back. And then when it's sent from field to the grave, you can add any dark contract from your deck to your hand, which is really crazy because it can search, like, for example, dark contract with the errors, which is the trap card I was talking about. It can search. It usually searches the fusion spell or it searches the field spell against, like, prank kids, for example. So this card is really good. Marksman, DDD Marksman Kingtail. This card is actually a card that you can overlay on top of any rank 4 DDD monster, and basically what it does is whenever you take effect damage this turn, you can attach a material from this, target one monster on the field, reduces attack and defense by 1,000, and then burn it and burn your opponent for 1,000. So I was actually able to use this to beat my opponent in I think one of the feature matches. But the reason why this card is really good is because, like, sometimes I have to nib my opponent and the nib token is, like, literally so fat. It's like 4,700 defense, or like it's 5k defense or something. So what I would do is I would use Marksman Kingtail, detach, reduce my opponent's nib token by 1,000, burn him for 1,000, and then I would link it off and use the effect of Marksman Kingtail to send the field spell to the graveyard. The field spell will then put the Marksman Kingtail back into the extra deck, and then you would use Ragnarok or something to reborn back the... you usually use a rank 6 or the rank 8 to reborn back the rank 4 in the graveyard, and then you can overlay the Marksman Kingtail on top again, detach again, and burn your opponent for 1,000 and reduce the defense and attack by 1,000 again because it's not once per turn. And then when you link this card off again, you can actually trigger the effect to send any DD or Dark Contract from your deck to the graveyard, because that effect is also not once per turn. So this card is really, really crazy. Basically has the effect where when it's sent from field to the graveyard, you can send any DD or Dark Contract to the graveyard, and it's not once per turn, like I said. So really, really crazy card. I really like it a lot. The next thing is DDD Wave King High Caesar. This card is literally Solemn Warning on legs. That's not once per turn. This card is insane. It also, so when a spell trap or monster effect is activated, that would include an effect that would special summon. Very similar wording to Solemn Warning, except this card can negate summons that don't start chains. You can attach a material from this, negate the activation if you do destroy that card, and you can give itself and one other DD monster you control at 1,800 attack until the end of the turn. What's really crazy about this is that, like, you can actually negate your own effect, and Nesh taught me this play, so shout out to Nesh for this, where you can negate your own spell trap card or monster effect, destroy it, so that you can give your monsters 1,800 attack boosts for free, and then kill your opponent with it. So, like, sometimes it comes up where you negate your own reborn effect, just so that it stays, for example, like Necro Slime, right? Necro Slime or like Vice Typhon, when you negate it, it stays in the graveyard, so it doesn't banish for cost. So, like, you can negate Vice Typhon, give this 1,800 boost, and give another monster 1,800 boost, and then beat over big monsters, and then go for game with it. So that's really, really cool as well. Anyways, next I play Zeus. This card is broken. This is one of the best card in my extra deck. So the reason why I think this deck is so good is because, bro, it literally has a easy Zeus line going second with Machine X. And it's very similar to, like, Borbo, because Machine X is so fat that it can usually beat over most monsters. And so you attack, and then you can just put Zeus on top. And if they imprime your Gilgamesh, you're not locked into DDD monsters. So, like, you can just make, like, Zeus with Machine X for free, which is really, really crazy. So, like, yeah, this card is just broken in this deck. Like, and sometimes you can make a really big Zeus too, because sometimes when you go second, you can go Wave King, Marksman Tell, and then have Zeus, and you can have, and then put Machine X, and then you can have a 5-mat Zeus. You can have a 5-mat Zeus. And the reason why you do a 5-mat Zeus is because if they ogre your Dark Contract, you can use Zeus effect to attach a 6th material for free. And then Zeus is just really, really crazy. Just such a broken card. So that's it. Next for the fusions, The reason why I think this deck is so pretty is because of the fact that it uses every summoning mechanic. I have Links, I have XYZs, and the next summoning mechanic that I will be using is the Fusion mechanic. So the two best ones is Flame King High Genghis. Whenever a DD monster would be special summoned, you can reborn any DD in the graveyard, and when it's destroyed by battle or card effect in my possession, so if they strike this card or something, I can actually use this effect to add any dark contract in my graveyard to my hand, and that effect is mandatory because it says add it to your hand, so there's no option. So that's pretty neat. And then I play Oracle King Arc. It comes up sometimes, especially like I wanted to have a time win condition in case my opponent read my card. I've only went into time once and actually lost in time. But other than that, I never really went in time ever. So basically this card, whenever a effect that would inflict damage to me, it makes me gain that life points instead. And it's also a level 7 fusion monster. It's also 2800, which challenges and threatens a Yugioh going second. It's really easy to make this card because it's any 2 DD monsters. It's a really, really good card. It's also a level 7 that allows you to use Lamia to make a Siegfried with. And then the last fusion monster I played was... What's up?
Do you prefer this or the Link 2?
Yeah, it was so good question. So like basically it was either D Arc or the Link 2 Dark Charmer, and I think this card was like, I never made this card to be honest, and I never saw a scenario where I would make the Dark Charmer Link 2 as well. So quite frankly, this slot was a blank for me. I only did this combo one time where I used it to make Lamia and to make Siegfried, but so I guess this card came up more than the Dark Charmer, but I never really saw like a time where those cards did come up. So
the Dark Charmer comes up after Nibiru.
Yeah, it comes after Nib. Yeah.
Or against the DP. Against the DP, it's broken.
Yeah, exactly. Next card is DDD Flame High King Genghis. Basically, this card is insane. It's a spell trap negate on your own turn. This is a card you want to summon going second to boards because it negates their back row. And then whenever a DD is normal or special, so it's slightly better than the 6 because it triggers on normal summon as well, where it can reborn any DD monster in the graveyard. So this card is really nice. I really like this card. I think it's very cool to have it in the extra deck. And it's a card that can beat over Nib, especially when you change this level with Cerberus. This card is good. It uses a level 5 or higher DD monster to make it. So Vice Typhon was really nice to get it easily out. And then the last summoning mechanic, boom, boom. Siegfried and Baron. So everyone knows what Baron does. The way you make this card is through a 3-card combo with Green Slime, Griffin, and like some version of like Gate or something like that. Basically, Green Slime and like 2 DD monsters like makes Baron combo. And basically, Orthros is a level 4 tuner. So you would use a Flame Genghis. You use a Flame Genghis, and you would use Orthros to make this card a Baron, and then you would make Gilgamesh afterwards. Baron's also really nice because Baron can pop your rank 4 and rank 5s, which triggers them in order to send them to the graveyard so that they get their effects. This card is also nice because sometimes if you hard draw the field spell and you don't use it in your combo, you can use Baron to pop the field spell to add cards to your hand for free. That came up for me before. So I like Baron a lot. Baron can also tag into like monsters in the graveyard, which is really cool. So I think this card is really nice. I like it. And then the last card is like DDD Curse King Siegfried. This card was broken. It's basically a spell trap negate that targets. But the reason why this card are so good is because if your opponent, like I said, if your opponent doesn't respect chain trap, take monster, chain this card would be, it basically can negate droplets. But I think the reason why this card is also kind of cool is because if this card would be destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you get 1,000 life points for each dark contract you control. And the cool thing about DDD monsters is that it has a really insane grind game where like when you kill these cards, like Curse Siegfried and all that stuff, is you can keep reborning them. Like you can just reborn Siegfried randomly. Like if it's properly summoned, you just reborn it. And you can reborn a lot of these monsters like that are like when you summon them. So it's like really, really nice. That's it for pretty much for my extra deck. Pretty long profile. I might like show you guys some combos or anything like that in like another video, but I hope you guys enjoyed the profile. But yeah, Nesh, anything you want to say, bro? That was a long profile. I'm literally getting parched. So 50 minutes.
Okay, shout out to Luxury.
Yep.
Thank you for having me on stream. You're insane.
Yep.
Site is unfair. The shit should be banned, and we need a DDD support for a general.
Yeah. I think
special summon it on that level 4.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I'll say is that like, you know, if you guys are like trying to pick this deck up, I would definitely say practice with it. Like, and Hani would be a big advocate for this too. Like, you know, when I took this deck for the first time 2 weeks ago, I had no idea how to play the deck. I was making a lot of misplays, and you know, I ended up not doing well at that tournament. It was the Big 3 tournament out in Arizona, and I took a deck that, you know, I didn't really know how to play. I was making a lot of misplays. I barely knew how to make this card. I barely knew how to make this card, and I just lost a lot, right? And it was all showed on stream. Like, I was getting clapped, went like X4 or something like that. And I think like one of the things that I think will benefit a lot of new players as they try to get better is, especially with decks like these, is, you know, it's okay to lose. And like when you go to these like bigger tournaments, like understand what your priorities are, right? For me, I wanted to top the YCS, and I didn't really care about like, you know, the regional tournaments on the weekend. For me, they were just all YCS testing. So like I could have played like another deck. I could have played like any other deck, right? And maybe like top the event with something easier to play and all that good stuff. But you know, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take the deck that I think will I'm gonna take to the YCS. But also, the other cool part was that I got to show you guys, like, the journey, right? Because 2 weeks ago, I picked this deck up for the first time. And I streamed my tournament experience with this deck. And last week, I went to, I was at, where was I? I was at Gunther's place in Pennsylvania. And I took the same deck again. I made top 8 of that tournament, right? And I was so, like, you guys literally saw... Those are the only time I've ever played DDDs besides one locals.
Yep.
In practice, I've never actually played this deck ever besides the 2 stream matches and 1 locals that I went on a whim because I needed a break from work. And what I'm trying to get at is that, like, you know, understand your priorities, right? Like, I wanted to top the YCS, so I didn't care if I lose last weekend, because a lot of people were like, yo, like, I didn't have enough time to test this deck. I didn't have enough time to learn all the combos. I didn't have enough time, blah, 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 all this stuff. And I'm like, bro, I literally worked freaking 56 hours in 5 days, bro. And I had time to learn the deck just from 2 weekends and just practicing and all that good stuff. And it's because I understood my priorities. Like, I was willing to take the L's on those regionals. I was willing to take the L's at locals because I knew that, you know, I needed to get better and I needed to learn. Yep. So... That's the thing that I would say big takeaway is, like, you know, like, don't be afraid to lose and, like, all that good stuff, because that's the only way you can get better. So that's all I really have to say about that. So, and you guys saw it, right? Like, in 2 weeks, I took this deck from the first time to topping a YCS today. So, and I'll be quite honest, this tournament, bro, I don't think I misplayed at all. Like, quite frankly, like, I'm usually, like, would be the first to say I misplayed. I don't think I misplayed at all. My top 8 loss, I'll say this, you guys can watch the stream, I just got variance out of the tournament. For a very consistent deck, that's going to happen, right? But I thought this was a deck that required the least amount of luck to win. So that's why I took it. Because every other deck had too many bricks, too many factors to, like, lose. So I was like, this was a deck that I think required the least amount of variance and the most amount of skill to win. And so I was like, you know what? There's be no reason for me not to learn this deck. Like, even if there's time constraints, I'm going to pick this deck up and learn it, because I'm like, that's what I truly believe, especially as I kept testing it. So, you know, like I said, variance happened. I'm not even mad about it. Like, Kyushin has to admit the guy I lost to. It happens, right? Like, that, there's nothing really to say about it. But I just want to say, like, I don't think I misplayed. And I think if I lost because of variance, I can't really be mad. I just have to try again and do better for the next YCS and hopefully win again. So that's it. That's all I have to say. Yep. But... all right, guys, before I leave you guys, I know this is a very long profile. If you guys stick all the way to the end, shout out to you guys. We're having a insane 3v3 $2,000 tournament for Master Duels this weekend. If you guys want to maybe get away a little bit from TCG, play a little bit of Master Duels this weekend, I'm going to be casting a tournament with Farfa, twitch.tv/Farfa. And we're going to be commentating, I think, one of the biggest, actually the biggest Master Duel tournament from a prize perspective. And I think even from an attendance perspective, I think this might be one of the biggest Master Duel attendance we'll have to date. So if you guys are interested in participating in this, join the Discord below in the description box. Shout out to Luxury Gaming. They're going to be the ones hosting this tournament. I collaborated with them and Metafy, who's one of our big sponsors, to make this tournament a reality for you guys. We're putting a lot of time, money, effort into the production, into the quality of the tournament, and making sure it's as smooth as possible. So it would mean a lot if you guys are, you know, just come out and play. It's literally free entry, no stakes at all for you guys. And I think it'll be a really cool opportunity that it's a 3v3. So you'll have a really cool opportunity to connect with people you never would have, and literally create friendships, I think, off this tournament. Even if you don't do well, I think you'll be able to meet new people, get yourself out in the community, and I think this would be a really good opportunity for that as well. So I think it's a win-win-win for everyone, and I hope to see you guys there. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe as well. It helps the algorithm, helps get the profile out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.